Hey, so we're like 6 months in, and it feels strangely the same. I'm not sure how much progress I feel like we've made. I feel like we've been having these conversations and still under lock and key in a lot of cases. And now that school is starting, well, sort of, like for some of us are having work kicked back up. Some of us are leaving this perpetual summer behind. Except for Josh, actually, he's living in Key West for the moment. But I wanted to talk to Josh Koerpel because he's really, really good at figuring out like the brain and how people sort of start, to break bad habits rather and start new ones. And I'm going to apologize in the beginning. I happen to love it, but I'm going to apologize on his behalf. He's sitting in Key West and he's surrounded by roosters. So if you hear them crowing, I just think it's awesome. I mean, it just adds something to the interview. So thank you for doing that. I asked you to cue them up. But say hi and tell us a little bit about your story here, how you got into this accountability gig.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, just thanks for having me on. This is awesome. Always love talking with you. And you're right, the roosters are here and they are feisty today. So Elvis has brought friends. For those that I guess never know, Elvis is the lead head rooster around here that just seriously crows at all hours of the day.
If Foghorn Leghorn makes an appearance, you're going to have to stop and show me, okay?
Yeah. In fact, I walked out. So right now I'm in Key West and I'm on my friend's porch where I've been working for the past 4 months. And just the other morning, I walked out onto this porch and these two massive roosters were sitting right on the desk where I have my computer and everything, just kind of eyeing me up, waiting for me. I almost felt like I was going to get mugged.
Really?
Okay. they're getting crazy around here. But yeah, awesome. Key West, and yeah, I've had a pretty crazy journey up until this point. I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I wasn't always doing my own thing. I had an office job. I was a mechanical engineering designer for the entertainment industry, which is just a fancy way of saying that I designed machines for rock stars to use during their tours and stuff like that.
On your resume, it would be help Beyonce fly.
Yeah. That's it. Well, we worked as a small team. I worked for this company in New York, and there was maybe just 4 or 5 of us, and we worked in this windowless office off the highway. But some of the most crazy and inspiring and cutting edge technology on how these massive shows, the machines that they use, making people do things, LCD screens, how they're moving and the challenges and stuff for all these massive venues came out of that small little office and our little 5-person team. We were like the Navy SEALs of the engineering entertainment world,
When the right minds team up. So now you have this program. You've been all over the world. You were on ships, and I think we'll talk about that because I think it relates to how you got into this. But you started this program called Fire Builders, and why? Were you just kind of sick and tired of people complaining that they couldn't get a goal done, or work for yourself, or how did you start that?
I was sick and tired of that, but that's not the reason why I actually started it. To be honest, I started this whole program because of my mother, and she, God love her, is an amazing author, but she was just hit a dry spell, just hit writer's block, and was always calling and always texting and wanted to talk through it. And I wanted to help, but at the same time, I couldn't, it was tough to take the time to do that all the time, every single day. So what I ended up doing was inventing a way that we could both get what we wanted. She got the inspiration and motivation every day, and it was a way to keep track of her goals, to focus on one thing every day. And for me, I kind of got my time back and was able to work and focus on, at the time I was doing a lot of client work. So those two things, that was the catalyst for a lot of, a lot of this stuff. And it was, and right now it's all about stuff that I've learned in my life. Being able to take big goals and break them down into 1 or 2 small steps, things that you do consistently on a daily basis, that has had the biggest impact of progress for me than just working in sporadic waves, seemingly kind of most people do.
But that's interesting. Like, let's like kind of go into that, because I feel that that's a reason why a lot of people don't get things started. I think it also has to do with your personality. I'm very much a just F and do it type of person, but also put me at a diner with a menu that has 20 pages and I'll probably be there forever and I can't.
Right.
But I think that, you have some of that stuff in you, but there are some things. Are people afraid to try? Are there goals that they start with too lofty? I mean, what stops people? I think, in your opinion, or who you've seen and worked with, what stops them from even starting?
Well, the starting thing's interesting. I think a lot of people just lack the confidence. They don't trust that they can actually follow through with it. They don't trust themselves enough to make it happen. It's not that whatever it is that they're trying to achieve is impossible. Most of the time, it is possible. Like, they see others achieve that same thing. You see it on Facebook all the time. All these guys, all of the hard work they've put in, they've achieved a lot of money and status and whatever it is that's important to them in their life. And so you say to yourself, well, I mean, so it is possible to do that. It's just that, can I do it? And one of the things I think that stops people is that they don't know how to answer that question, or they're afraid that the answer is no. And so it's much easier to do nothing and stay stagnant than it is to step out and validate that failure, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I think that, we often see that it's, Facebook is the highlight reel, and we don't see the backstory and the old adage of, okay, like someone sold a course and they made $2 million, but they spent, 1.9 million marketing it. Right. So you don't get the other side of it. And I think that discourages people too. So I think in some ways, a lot of what you do is you make it personal and you make it like you against you kind of thing. And I think that's interesting. I guess maybe share a little bit more on that, because that to me is the key. It's only you versus you. It
is you versus you. It's like, you got to put the blinders on and, like you said, not look at other people, not judge their progress and compare yourself. It's an unfair comparison. You have no idea how long that person worked to get to where they were. And the more that you dig into that, the more that you sort of get to know those people and sort of see what's happening behind the scenes, the more you start to realize that, they like worked 18-hour days for 5 years to make that happen. So, so buckle in, because that's what you're in for, kind of thing. But the you versus you, it really is, at the end of the day, just about, it's for you. Like, you can cheat yourself, and you can set yourself a goal and then make some excuse why you don't want to hit it, and let things slip and slide until finally it just disappears off into the ether, fades away quietly, that dream of yours. But if you're honest with yourself and you say to yourself, look, like, I can achieve this, but it may take a little bit longer than I thought. However, I can ease that burden by breaking it up into little small chunks. And as long as I feel like I'm progressing, I am going to feel good about this. And so, a lot of people out there, a lot of people have written about this phenomenon and talked about breaking stuff down into little chunks and little goals, and eating an elephant one bite at a time. That's what my dad would always say way back in the day. But with my system, what I have done is essentially taken that idea of breaking things down into small steps, but I've paired it with the emotive power of influencers. Somebody in your life that you respect and admire, and that you want their approval in some way, shape, or form. I put those two concepts together, and that is the Fire Builders program that I created that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And talk to us about accountability, because I think that's the other piece. It's like there's like 3 things that go into this. So that's the third. How does that affect everything? For me, when I have to report into somebody, it's like there's no way I'm not going to report. Even if I didn't do it, I'm going to tell them something. You know what I mean? I think a lot of us either need a partner who can keep us accountable, whether it's just a stranger or our friend. Sometimes it's better that it's someone that doesn't know you very well, because you're just going to be more apt to report. But how does that aspect play into people achieving? Because you see people achieving things all the time. You get the reports, you see the stats of people completing challenges and things like that. Does that sort of make or break the deal when they have to report in?
No, actually, it might be a little bit difficult at first for people, because they're just not used to writing something down at the end of the day. You ask people, hey, what have you accomplished today? A lot of times people forget what they've accomplished, you know? They don't even know. They say to themselves, that's a good question. I don't even remember what the hell I did today. But the
I think
minute
most
that
of
you,
us feel that way these days. That's why.
yeah,
The fact that I
especially,
got up and stayed alive and didn't catch a virus, that's a win. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, like, you know, I mean, it's, they're doing great things in the world, but they're discounting those and instead focusing on what they haven't done. And so it's a really good exercise to just get involved with, is that at the end of the day, recounting to yourself all the like badass things that you did, because I'm sure you did a lot. And so that's, you know, one part of it. And when I look at all of the results from people, what you start to see is that people's desires of what they want to achieve, if you were to distill it down into one single thing that people could do, like, Gabby, what is your one thing that you want to do tomorrow to move a little bit closer to your goal, right? Try and make that as simple as possible, because that first step is key. But what you find when you look at the data is that a lot of times that one goal either is vastly different than what somebody actually achieved, because life just gets in the way, and that just happens, right? Yeah. But more often than not, they've achieved so much more than that one thing. It was that one thing that was the catalyst. It was the crystallization seed, you can almost say, to action. And then that led to another step and a final step and another step and another step. And then they ended up getting so much more done than they thought that they could. But it was that first step that really pushed them over the edge. And so that's the accountability kind of side of this.
It's the results. I think it's like, you know, okay, get on the treadmill, run a mile every day, but then over time, maybe you've lost 5 pounds that month because you did that. That's the end result. But, you know, you did what you said you were going to do, but all the benefits are great. I think I'm going to tell everybody, well, you don't now, it's rare to catch you on shore, but you live on a boat, right?
I do.
And that's super cool. You live on a boat called the Albatross. And, you told me a while ago, and I thought this was interesting because I had like a million questions about like, how does someone live in a boat? Why would somebody do that? Like, I didn't get it. Now I get it. But I guess certain things have to happen every day, right? In order for you to, no pun intended, stay afloat, right? Like, to keep that ship intact, like, is a lot different than when you have a house or a lawn or something like that. Has that helped you? I guess it's helped you, but you can tell me how, you know, kind of shape the way that you run your life, because I mean, you're really good at consistency. And I think that's the key to anything, really.
100%. I mean, it's pretty much the reason that we didn't die like out at sea, you know, like, because you're in a situation when you're sailing. And by the way, like, for some context, so I live on a sailboat north of New York City. For the last couple of years, I've lived on this boat, the Albatross. But all in my 20s, I was in the tall ship industry. I sailed these big traditionally rigged sailboats all over the world. And so we would do these long stretches and these long sails, different points. And what you find is that the situations that you find yourself in environmentally, right? Just being out on the ocean, they're volatile. They are, 1 minute it's sunny days, and the next minute you've got a massive squall, and the boat's heeling over, and waves are crashing over the side of the boat, and things are breaking, and people are panicking and stuff like that. So
it's a good time.
you know, it puts things in perspective, right? And the way that you're able to deal with that mentally, right, is to have some level of consistency in your day, right? You need something to balance out the extreme, like, volatile nature of the water and the dynamic nature of the fact that things are just changing all the time. And so that consistency keeps you on an even keel, no pun intended, right? That is where I learned a lot of this stuff, is the lessons and things that you learn out on the water, staying consistent, because things will inevitably go wrong, and you try to prepare as much as possible, but inevitably they will go wrong. And the simpler that you can keep your solutions, and the simpler that you can keep your consistent routine, the easier it is to fix those things when things go wrong. And that's something that I totally get that a lot of people don't get because they're not in that environment. But I can tell you that if you were, like, you would find that is like, that consistency is almost like a safe harbor in the storm.
And I think for all of us, parents, and, there's a lot probably who are going to see this. With everything being in flux, nobody knows what the heck is going on in September. I mean, it's still questionable. Will kids actually go back in this area? Will they not? How important do you think it is for somebody in September to look at breaking a bad habit or starting a new one? I mean, have you ever seen kind of like such demand or such a critical time for people to keep their heads on? I mean, would you recommend that everybody, no matter what, whether they're entering into a program or not, keep a goal and keep a journal perhaps? Because I feel like, aside from health issues, catching a virus or not, that's the only way that we're going to get through this or the rest of this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a good idea in general to keep tabs on how you feel. And how you're processing this for yourself. And if that means writing stuff down, keeping a journal, articulating those feelings, I think is important. And it's also a good time to try something new, in my mind anyway. Like, I don't know, a good example, and maybe people out there can relate to this, but I do a lot of software development. In fact, the Fire Builders is software, and then I have this other piece of software. I do it from the boat. And one of the best places to develop software, to find good developers, high-valued developers, is in the Ukraine. And so last December, I said to myself, you know what? I think I'm just going to start learning how to speak Ukrainian. Because
who doesn't? You think you're special or something? I mean,
yeah, I'm sure everybody listening can relate. They've had that point in their lives. They've said that to themselves. Yeah. But no, you realize that whenever you're working with people, especially people that overseas with different culture, different language, the more ties that you can have to them, the better, right? The better, higher quality product, the better relationship that you're going to have, just the better time you are going to have in general with all of the ups and downs that happen. But,
and I deep respect on their side for you even trying, because I have the same thing. I work with a lot of different people who speak different languages, and the fact that I would even try to mutter a sentence or something goes miles, because they're like, oh, 100%. You gave it a shot. It was terrible, but you tried.
Yeah, exactly. Like with all the traveling that you do, that you've got to see that all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an appreciation, that you took a step.
It is, and on top of that, at least for me, on top of the appreciation, it's the fact that it's something new. It breaks me out of my routine, my same old, routine. It causes me to use a little bit different side of my brain, and it forces me to again be consistent with something that I didn't know how to read Cyrillic. I mean, I didn't know. In case people out there want to do this, and this isn't a plug for any website or anything, but I use this site called Preply, Preply, and it is awesome. I've learned a lot of languages in my day, and I can tell you that there was no way that I could have learned how to speak Ukrainian if I wasn't speaking with somebody live 4 times a week. Right. So 4 times a week, I meet with this person, Elena, right, in Kiev, and we have these Skype calls, and her and I use Google Docs and stuff. My point is that sometimes you don't want to do it, but you just make yourself do it. You stay consistent 4 times a week, every week, right? And you see progress, and you get almost addicted to the progress, not necessarily the end goal of being able to be fluent or conversationally fluent in Ukrainian. It's the progress that you see, that you say to yourself, man, like I'm actually able to take what sounded like complete gibberish at first and break it up into words that half of which I understand, right? I still make a fool of myself, but it's a little bit more. And so I start getting addicted to that progress, and that's what keeps me going, not necessarily the end goal. I keep on pushing farther and farther away, right, to challenge myself. But it's really the progress that is keeping me going. And I would encourage that to anybody with any goal, right? This is a great time to start to try something new and to get addicted to the feeling of progression, as opposed to saying, oh, you know what? Well, because the last thing you want to do is look back on this time and say, I did nothing with it. Like, I learned nothing, I did nothing, I relaxed, and I kind of regret not taking advantage of the situation. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic time to try new stuff.
I love that. Addicted to the progress. And it's true. And I think that goes back, just to close the circle, it goes back to having a small, measurable goal. It's okay to dream big, but like, it's impossible to say I'm going to lose 50 pounds in 2 months. You know, it just doesn't happen. But if you say, wow, okay, by the end of the month, I'd like to have 4 or 5 pounds off, you know what I mean? You're going to be thrilled, and you're going to be more tempted to stick on a program, whether it's fitness or diet or both. And I know that most of us have seen that, you know, in our lives.
Yeah.
But sometimes we need a little reminder. All right. So if people want to find out more about Fire Builders, what's the best way to have a look?
Best way to have a look, www.firebuilders.io. So what we're doing now, we're in the really initial beta phases. Beta means essentially like we've built out a working version of the software. We're currently testing it with like small scale tests, friends and family, stuff like that, trying to break it essentially, and find all of the crazy bugs and stuff before we release it to the masses. And so that is what's happening. But if you are interested in something like that, or you feel like the whole premise of the Fire Builders thing in general is so that coaches and consultants can white label this software. They can use it so that they can hold all of their people accountable. You know, those end users, their participants, so to speak, they'll never know that Fire Builders exists. They won't know. They'll think that it's all coming from like you, Gabby, you know, like you're holding them accountable every single day and helping them break down these goals into really small chunks. So that if you feel like that's something cool, you're interested, firebuilders.io, there's a wait list. We'll give you all the information. And then my exploits, like on the boat and the motorcycle trip, which we didn't even really talk about, but it was
I'll have you back because we have to talk about travel and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
The art of, I'd love to talk to you more about solo travel, like when things get back on track, because I think you're a good guideline guideline for how to do it right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All of that stuff is on Instagram, Saltwater CEO, and my personal Facebook page, just Josh Koerpel. You can find me there. So yeah, those are the best ways to get in touch.
Awesome. Onward. Well, thank you so much. And I think people got something out of this. If nothing else, consistency and get addicted to the progress. That's awesome. Yeah. It's about the journey, right? Not the destination. So
100%. And like, we're living in such interesting times. Like, you know, the most interesting people are the most interested. And so just follow those gut feelings of wanting to try something, explore something, and do something new. And I promise it's going to be something refreshing. Break it up into small steps. You'll be good to go.
I love it. All right. Thanks for chatting. Talk to you soon.
See you, Gabby.
All right. Bye.